Welcome to this week's episode of the Human Enhancement Podcast. This is your host, Jeffrey Wu. I'm excited to have back my longtime co-host, Michael Brandt.
Hey,
He's co-founder of Human.
Hey.
Welcome to the program after a long hiatus.
Yeah, it's good to be back.
Yeah, I mean, so I thought this would be an interesting conversation because we've talked a lot about the philosophical underpinnings behind Human, our philosophy of Human as the next platform that underpins what we do at Human, the company. We've also talked a lot about cognitive enhancement, metabolic enhancement. But a lot of us have now been asking us and talking to us about what we do for physical activity. And we might not be as publicly, I guess, as effusive around what we do athletically, but I know that you've been quite an athlete over the last few months. So I thought this would be a fun conversation to talk about, what we've been up to in terms of our athletic and physical pursuits. So do you want to jump in and talk about the different things you've been training and looking at over the last few months?
Yeah, so I got bit by the runner bug about 9 months ago when several of us on the team here started having a friendly competition for a half marathon. And I should say re-bit by the runner bug because I was actually just home for Thanksgiving and talking to my mom, and she was saying that when I was like 5, 6, 7, to get the ants out of the pants, she would take me to the track and I would just run these laps. And I've had kind of this, I've always been healthy, always worked out. Sometimes I'm more like, go to the gym 3 times a week and maintain it. But there's been periods in my life where I've really doubled down into running in particular. In college, I was fixated on, I want to run a mile in under 5 minutes. So I just started running every single day until I got there.
Yeah, and I was
and you remember, we were next door neighbors at the time.
Yeah, no, this was back in college at Stanford. Yeah, I remember you had a goal to hit a 5-minute mile, and you just, I don't know, one day you were like, oh, I did it. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. This guy, I didn't even really know what times meant, but it seemed impressive. Yeah. Even though like with like full context of how hard it would be to run, 5-minute mile, it's quite good.
Yeah, it's no superhuman strength. I mean, most collegiate, even like good high school runners will be able to hit that. But I think it's fast for a non-runner. It's fast for a normal person. So I got bit by the bug then, and other periods, and yeah, about 6-9 months ago, several of us on the team, including Dr. Stubbs, we had a healthy bet on like who could run the fastest half marathon.
I think that really instigated like most of us at this company actually to be really, really diligent with working out. So like speaking for myself, similar. I mean, grew up playing tennis, decently competitive, but knew that I wasn't going to be a professional athlete. So like working out through college and through my early professional career was very much like work out a few times a week to be like healthy.
Yeah.
Like never like really.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
Really never push. But I think talking about human enhancement, I think if you're going to be putting hours in the gym anyways and having maintenance, why not put 100% effort into really optimizing performance out of that time?
Yeah.
And I think having these goals, where I'm doing a charity boxing match actually this weekend, has made me a lot more diligent, and I think just seeing a lot better physical results, just like how fast I'm improving in terms of all my skill sets and endurance and all of that. I think you should talk about your half marathon hack, because I think that was like one of the things that I think was most interesting was that in like 6 weeks of training, you went from
like the probably 3 times a week gym guy
from not really, probably never would have thought about running a half marathon to placing like top 100 in the San Francisco half marathon. So tell me about so that was part of the bet you were talking about, and I know you were very quantitative about it. So let's talk about it in terms of the biohacking angle here for the topic here. How did you biohack your way to getting a top 100 finish in the San Francisco half marathon, where 6 weeks ago, before that, you never thought about running a half marathon?
Yeah, so the way that I thought about running faster was just dividing it into subcomponents. Like obviously the outcome you want is a faster time, but what does that look like and what's going on in your body and how do you measure it? So the first thing I started doing was tracking my heart rate and my cadence, my footstep cadence on the ground. And obviously,
so this is like using
Apple Watch. Yeah.
And then how about cadence?
Same.
So and you can track foot's like, okay.
Yeah. And you can use Strava, you can map your run, you can see how fast you're going. It's really nice to be able to look at your wristwatch and see, oh, am I running a 6:40 mile or a 7:40 mile or whatever. That in and of itself is helpful. Heart rate, let's talk about one at a time. Heart rate and cadence. So heart rate is interesting because we want to maintain a heart rate below, say, 160. The formula that a lot of people use is 185 minus your age. And that's this anaerobic threshold where if you're below that, you're generally using energy that's coming from a mix of your stored body fat and glucose. Above that threshold, you're in anaerobic mode where you're just straight using glucose. And it's inefficient to run above 160 BPM. You just can't do it for very long. It doesn't matter who you are.
It's basically like the thinking of going from like sustained running to like sprinting. If you're going up, you're like kind of in this sprint mode.
Right. And so this is true for all athletes. The difference for an elite marathon, say like someone who wins the Chicago Marathon, is that they're able to go really fast, but with a reasonable heart rate. So it's not that they're sprinting, they have a super high heart rate for 2 hours and change. It's that they're able to move their body with a speed while keeping their heart rate low. So that's very important. There's no like magical way to just have like a 200 BPM heart, like boom, 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 boom for 2 hours. You can't do that. So you have to figure out is, okay, let me fix my heart rate. Let me run at 160 or 165 BPM and try to go faster while keeping my heart rate the same. So it's like, how do you do what you're doing without exhausting yourself? You start looking at your technique. You start trying to run smoother, trying to relax muscles that aren't actually like productive in the forward propulsion of your body. You begin sometimes just stick with it, right? One thing I was just doing is as a training goal was staying at 160, 165 BPM and just doing that and not really worrying about the time. Because the time
for how long? Like a half marathon length of time, like 2 hours.
I would do like 45-minute, hour-long runs.
Yeah. How about like what was your first week of running like? Like what were you doing?
Yeah, I go back over my Strava. You should follow me on Strava if you're out there, Michael Brandt, and you can see what my runs are looking like. They're getting a lot bigger actually, and longer and stronger as I've grown. So this is speaking back on how I was initially preparing for my first half marathon. The first week, I think I just tried to put in volume. I just tried to put in like 20, 30 miles
a week.
Yeah.
And just like, were you trying to maintain like 165 BPM?
Exactly. And so the idea,
just go as long as you could.
Yeah, just go in a given session. I would try to go 45, 60 minutes. Beyond a certain point, it's harder to recover. The goal is really like you want to cover as many miles in a given day. But if you run too long in one session, if you run 3 hours today, it's not the same as running an hour today, an hour tomorrow, an hour the next day. This latter way of doing it is more sustainable. You don't want to overexert on one day and then just like be too dead to exert on the next day. Right. So be like going out running 6-8 miles and staying at that 160 BPM. And then just like literally it's fun to witness my own body. If I stayed there one day, the next day I would do it and I would just be hitting that same heart rate, but my body would be moving faster.
Right.
And it was fun to just like look at my watch, see my heart rate, just chill out at my heart rate, not worry about the time. Like the speed comes, but just worry about my heart rate, my breathing, relaxing, my technique, and then just by repeating the steps, just getting more miles under my feet, my body is able to move faster while keeping the heart rate the same.
Cool.
And then the second thing, just on the cadence. So having your cadence is super important as a runner because when you're running with high cadence, so the cadence you're supposed to hit is around 180 steps per minute. So left, right, left, right, left, right.
3 steps a second, basically.
Yeah.
Boom, 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 boom.
And if you think about it, what happens if you slow down the cadence? Well, if you try to maintain the same speed, your stride length gets longer.
Yes.
And that's the cause of basically every single running injury is long strides. Because when you lengthen out your stride, you start striking the ground naturally with your heel because you're really striding out.
Yeah.
And it does a lot of things. People call it running with the brakes on. You're just kind of like you're
slamming and you're slowing down. You're losing forward momentum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you look at the elite marathon runners, and these are people running sub 5-minute miles for 26 miles. Yeah. And they're just, it's called a mid-heel strike. You're hitting mid-foot strike. The middle of your foot is hitting the ground basically right under your body. Right. And then you're pushing back. You're using your glutes to push back. So you're not really reaching your foot forward and heel striking. You're on the recovery of your stride, your foot is coming underneath you, midfoot is hitting the ground, and then you're pushing back. And so what this is all to say is that the way to become a better runner is to keep your cadence high so that you're not artificially lengthening out your strides and causing this like heel pounding, which is slowing you down and is going to cause all the damage to your hips. It's going to cause all this like bounciness in your knees and your hips. And when you keep your cadence high, then it's really a matter of, okay, let me keep this cadence. And then gradually over time, you try to lengthen out your stride length. You try to push harder with your glutes so that you're going further on each step. But again, keeping the cadence just as high as it's always been. So it's like the way to kind of sum it up, it's like I would run, keep my heart rate at 160, keep my cadence at 180, and then I would just try to do a longer stride length every time. I would try to be pushing harder on each of those steps on the ground. And so it's cool because you can just decompose this problem of how do I run faster? You can decompose it into the component biomarkers and then track those, lock them in, and then push where it really is like your body's able to improve.
Or like I think I remember like as we were training and I was like participating in some of the track road work days that you were locking in specific variables but like pushing and focusing on like one of them, right? Like we would do like fartleks, which are 400 meter fast and like some recovery laps. Like can you talk about like the different strategies to improve?
Yeah, so if you're tracking along with this, it's like you're keeping your heart rate at a certain level, you're keeping your cadence at a certain level, and then the variable you want to solve in the equation is how do I just now push harder on each step so that I'm gaining more ground with each step. And that comes from having better form, better glute muscles, and then the way you practice that, even if you're trying to run a marathon or half marathon, is you have to go to the track and do some speed work because that's how you build the power. You have to learn what it feels to move faster. So you go to the track and there's a number of ways you can do it. A lot of times a fartlek on a track is like sprint the straightaways and jog the curves. You can also do 400 meter repeats, do 400 meters, jog, 100 meters and back, and then do it again. Do that 10, 12 times.
I remember doing that with you once for like 400 meters, 8 times or 12 times is like, I remember like 4/5 laps, like fuck.
Yeah.
Sucks.
No,
and then
awesome.
like getting pushed and like finishing it. It felt really awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. And then while you're doing that, you're becoming a stronger runner. You're learning how to put more force into each step. And then, recover a day. And then you do a nice 6-8 mile run, hit your 160, 165 BPM, hit your cadence of 180 times hitting the ground per minute. And then guess what? Now each time your foot's hitting the ground, it's pushing harder because you did a good job on track day. Yeah. And so you're just seeing your body get faster. It's amazing. Yeah. and it's almost like too good to be true. It's like you just kind of crack this code. It's not that hard.
Can anyone do it? 'Cause
yeah.
I think like it is like you definitely had some good discipline to do that because like you were waking up. We were waking up early.
Yeah,
right?
6 in the morning.
6:30 in the morning to be able to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's definitely like not easy. Like I've been, but I think you get used to it. I think it's like a new norm that you set for yourself. There's definitely some like activation energy to be like go over the hump. But then I think that's a highlight. After 6 weeks, right? Like you did a sub 1 hour 30-minute half marathon.
Yeah, so it's a little under a 7-minute per mile pace
for 13 miles.
Yeah,
which is pretty awesome.
It was pretty good. Now my goals are beyond that. I've since broken that PR down to 126. I want to break 120 within the coming 6 months. I'm doing this weekend a half Ironman triathlon, which is you swim 1.2 miles and then you bike 56 miles,
right?
And then you run a half marathon, and so I'm optimizing each subcomponent of that sport,
right?
And I expect running still tends to be my strong suit in the triathlon, and actually anyone out there who's an active triathlete or trail runner or biker, swimmer, drop us a line. We'd love to hear from you and just like say hi. We have a group on Strava as well for human.
Yeah, HVMN.
So reach out to us. We'd love to just kind of build the community, see who all is out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think that, especially with our human ketone product, with the ketone ester, I mean, this product is designed for people like what you're doing. It's designed legitimately for special operator warfighters on like cognitively, physically demanding multi-day missions, and best on cyclists and ultra runners, endurance athletes. I mean, it's like a super efficient fuel that's not sugar, that's powering over these multi-hour events.
Yeah, and that's what's been exciting to me. It's a nice blend of just personal interest. Again, I was running around the track with my mom when I was 5 and 6, so there's some personal interest there, but I think it's particularly good time right now to just be doubling down into it personally as it aligns with our business goals as well. Yeah. I'm excited to be trying out ketone and winning these races using better fueling because what's happened to me, I would say one of the biggest changes that's happened more recently. So I spoke before about training for the first half marathon, what's happened more recently is really figuring out fuel. As I've been doing this triathlon training, it's like, okay, I'll go and swim a couple of miles and immediately get changed and go run 8 miles. But when you're exerting yourself for that kind of time, it doesn't matter who you are, there ends up being a question of fueling and hydration. And sometimes people call that the fourth sport in the triathlon is your fueling.
Yeah.
Because when you're going for that, or in an ultra marathon, something like that, your body just can only store so much glycogen, right? Your body can only store so much water, and you have to have a solution for that. And it comes beforehand with how you prepare the day before and hydrate the day before. Obviously, how much sleep and other behavioral stress factors in your life. But then the day of, it's like, okay, well, what are you fueling your body with? Because you're just you're using energy. And I think the fun thing about all of this is you're really feeling your body as a machine. You're feeling your body as this like most brilliant piece of technology you'll ever own. And you're fueling it, and then you're just very literally seeing this output from it.
Yeah, very viscerally in a time that's very quantified.
Yeah.
And I think that's an interesting thing about the introduction of human ketone. And I don't want to turn it just into a ketone discussion, but I mean, I think the status quo has been just slamming goo shots, right? Like if we talk to and look at when people are on these races, they're slamming 50 grams of carbs every 45 minutes.
Right.
And not just carbs, like fast acting glucose.
Right.
I mean, that's basically drinking like a can and a half of soda every hour for like 5 hours.
Yeah. I think it's great. I think it's like adult candy. These like,
but I think that's why you see some of these stories where some of these like Ironman athlete champions end up being diabetic, pre-diabetic, because they're constantly carb fueling, and you have so much carbs that you're constantly jacking up your insulin, and you're addicted to that insulin carb cycle.
Yeah.
And you end up having diabetes. So I think the innovation of ketones allows us to actually give you a non-insulinogenic, non-carb fuel source.
Yeah.
So you can, so it's like it's a new paradigm that I hope that we can really introduce into the sporting world, and change not just the performance outcomes, because I think we'll make new world records, new champions.
Right.
But we also make everyone healthier. We won't. We prevent people trying to do good to not do harm accidentally.
Right. Because I don't know. I mean, maybe who knows? It would take time, but maybe I'll become pro level. It's not happening today or tomorrow. But regardless, I want to just go on bike rides and runs from decades and decades of my life. Right. And I don't want it to be cut short or to be having some negative effect on me. Like, I'll put it this way, like I'm doing these long spurts of exercise, especially on the weekends, and I'm not losing any weight, right? So I'm taking in a lot of calories. 1,000 is putting it lightly. Like, it's like I'm taking in a bunch of calories. So there's just like this net throughput on my body, and it's like, okay, well, I want a different answer than just having a bunch of sugar.
Yeah.
Like it just isn't good enough for me on the research that we all know of. Like, it isn't good to be just battering your insulin response all the time.
Right. Absolutely. Anything else in terms of in terms of running or any other tidbits? I mean, I think it is like something, I guess broadly to zoom it out, I mean, I think that's something we're looking forward to be doing much more of in 2018. I think the community and the listeners that we have on this program, if it's been growing, like 30% month over month for the last few months. So really appreciate the growth here. And also, I think a lot of people want to meet up in person. I think and Zill will be happy to confirm this. Zill is my producer here. That like people on the street will come by our office or like just be like, "Hey, do you have a podcast?" I mean, it's super flattering. So we want to do more physical meetups, and I think one of the ideas is like doing track day or cycling day. Some sort of physical activity where we can really just like get sweaty and do an activity. I think there's obviously like great things we can all do together online and talk about fasting and biohacking, all of that, but it's still very hard to beat an in-person, like, let's get sweaty together experience.
Yeah. And let's figure out what you're doing that's working for you or what I'm doing that's working for me, and let's trade some notes.
Yeah. I mean, I was going to say, you should take on the interviewer mode and ask me about like the boxing. Cause I think, because I think, speaking towards like just the seriousness of training, I don't think I'm necessarily I'm not putting in that many more hours a week. Cause we were pretty just like diligent in just being like, efficient at working out, maintaining exercise level, work, sleep, eat, but I think to like just the dedication of having real goals, it pushes your limits aggressively. And I think something as contact heavy as boxing, where like
you're literally afraid for your
if you mess up, you get punched in the face, and you're like, damn. And I think like it's a very visceral feeling that's much different from like a group playing tennis or basketball, where someone scores on you, it doesn't feel good. But I think the rawness of competition of like, you just know your limits of your body real quick.
Yeah.
Like you know real quick that like, okay, so this guy's just faster. Like even in running and track days, like damn, like Michael Brandt just beat me on 400 or whatever, right? Like, oh, like fuck, like I just hit my limit. I can't go faster right now. So I think actually testing yourself and then seeing yourself push those limits, I think is very. I feel like most of us don't do that anymore. I feel like in a lot of ways, society is very, very healthy and goal-oriented as a high schooler, or maybe sometimes in college, and then people just like back off.
Right.
Like, I think I would say that we were kind of in that spot, before
on the edge of it, for sure, yeah.
Right. Like we would just go to the gym and kind of ship it in. I think sometimes a little bit more motivated than other times, but we would kind of ship it in. Yeah. At least I'm speaking for myself, at least. And it's like, why is that? Why do we just kind of we do this as a chore? Why not actually, if you're spending the same amount of time, do it for a goal?
Yeah, and what I would say to anyone who's like looking for the motivation is go outside of the gym. I think a lot of times why are gyms designed? The gyms are designed to be these efficient places that you can go to. You don't have to leave this box, and you're able to do basically work out every muscle and cardio and everything all in this very tight area. So it's very efficient. But what it isn't necessarily a big goal-oriented thing. It's not necessarily like fun, fresh air. It's not necessarily competitive or social or all these other things that you get out of rock climbing or boxing or running or biking. And
anti-social boxing, beating people. No, but like I think even the Spartan race, like most of the team
that
did.
Was super fun. Yeah. And don't get me wrong, like gyms are great. I go to the gym. Like a lot of people have fun at the gym. Weightlifting is awesome. Like there's a lot you can do to have fun at the gym. But what I do mean to say is most people going to your 24-hour fitness, Equinox, whatever, are kind of phoning it in. They're going there just like do 45 minutes, look good in the mirror, like ship it in, call it a day. But the people who are outside, like swimming in the bay or meeting up with their friends to play tennis, they're all having fun with it. Or right. Like there's some aspect of it. A lot of times it's a goal. I think goal is extremely motivating for some, and then for others, like the social component or the just adventure component of going on a long bike ride or something is it pulls you out, and then you start loving it. You start being like, wow, this is a great way to spend my time. Like I really love this. And then that's where you really crack it, where it's not like a chore anymore. It's like you don't need to be motivated to watch Netflix or like go eat a milkshake. It's like the enjoyment of the process itself is all you need, is all the motivation you need.
Absolutely. I think the Spartan race as a team was like a fun activity that like we were all able to do together and just get out there, run 3.5, 4 miles, do some obstacle courses, right? Like I think it's like that kind of childhood delight and curiosity of what we could do with our physical bodies. I think it's something that's like just bashed away just by doing your bench, your squat, your deadlifts, do your 15-minute jog on the treadmill, take a shower, go home, right?
So I'd love if we have time to go into what's the story behind your boxing match? How did that come about?
Yes.
And any predictions for that outcome as well?
Yeah. So this stemmed from, around the buzz around boxing during the Mayweather-McGregor fight. So one of our mutually good friends, Naguib, and I were hanging out that following weekend, and he had talked about, wanting to get more into shape, and he's been looking at either getting really good at tennis. I think boxing was one of the options, and a third activity. He said like he liked the boxing program that he was gonna. He liked like the boxing coach the best. And I was like, I've always been interested. I've been a fan of MMA, sweet science of boxing. I don't know. I think it's just kind of an interesting sport. In general, I think if you look at like what is a sport, it's essentially like an analogy for a war, right? It's like a classier, rule-ified version of a team versus another team, and it seems that like fighting or boxing is like as close to
close to the bone,
to close to the bone, right? Obviously, some rules there, but as close to the bone as possible. And we got to a point where we're just like egging each other on, where it's like, all right, like let's do it seriously. We're gonna train Naguib, like you should do it seriously. And I was like, all right. And then like I was, I'm a bit of a scrapper, and I think it's like, okay, you're gonna do it. Like maybe you should just like put a date on calendar, train super seriously for it, and just have a little fun slug match. Yeah, it became like a thing. I think we didn't stay too close to what Naguib's protocol is for training, but I've been doing personal sessions with a coach for an hour, 7:30 on Monday, Wednesdays, 9:30 in the morning on Saturdays, doing like track and road work on the off days. So I feel like I'm improved pretty quickly and getting some sparring pretty quickly compared to like the average, probably the more, boxer size. Let's go to the boxing gym and hit bags for like, a couple times a week. So it's definitely getting a lot of just like live sparring in. I don't know. I mean, I think, but I think I've gotten just a real respect for the sport. Like it's a fight. Like it's scary. It's terrifying when you see someone trying to knock your head off. Like I don't think there's you don't really see that intensity in the real world, like in any normal any day part of the life in your life. And like I think seeing that for the first couple of times, like, oh, what did I sign up for? Like someone is like staring into your eyes, like trying to figure out how to punch your face, and you're like trying to punch them really hard back because they hit you, and you're like, I don't like this person right now. So I think there's some respect on all pugilists out there. It's definitely some respect.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's funny to me because I think so many of these, I just had this image in my mind, when people are grabbing drinks and talking and like challenging each other to a fight, 9 times out of 10 it becomes a barroom brawl, right? or just never happens. Right. More likely just de-escalates, goes nowhere. And it's really cool to see how like that actually is, that aggression got channeled on both sides into this very productive.
Yeah, we're donating to. We're gonna do some tickets to invite some of our friends to watch and cheer on these two idiots.
And where are the proceeds going? You want to shout out a bit about?
Yeah. So I'm donating the proceeds to. I think we're gonna figure out like basically the winner's gonna get to donate the proceeds, but the proceeds the charity that I hope to donate money to is Elite Meat, which is a new nonprofit that's organized around transitioning special operator soldiers, a lot of Navy SEALs that are transitioning out of service into the workforce. So I got connected with the group a few months ago when a group of Navy SEALs came out to San Francisco and was honored to be one of the presenters as a business that could interface and potentially employ some of these veterans and transitioning military folks. So it's great. Really appreciate the mission. I think, and I think that was also, just my first real interaction with the U.S. military. I remember just this past Veterans Day, which was a few weeks ago, never really having a personal connection to it. I don't know. Do you have anyone connected to like the military service?
My grandparents, but and then certain people in high school or like ROTC went to military. Yeah. But I think I know what you're saying, and I think recently we've spoken with a lot of more like senior people in a business context. Right. It's again a different world from I think what you're.
Yeah. So I think it just I think I don't know. There's this like very alpha jock, meathead, perhaps stereotype of our soldiers, and I just found that to be completely not the case. I found the people I've interacted in the community to be very humble, clearly confident in their expertise and their wheelhouse, but very willing to learn, adapt, and push and be curious around other aspects beyond what they've had a lot of experience in. So I think made me appreciate our men and women in uniform. I think it's something that I hopefully as part of our company at HVMN to be able to build and continue to build technologies to able to help them return from combat safer and more effective.
Yeah, I think that the armed forces do a phenomenal job of helping people become systems thinkers of their physical performance and just how they're operating. Yeah. I think that armed forces are very organized in how things are ranked, how people are given feedback, how people are like rise through the ranks and how performance is judged and evaluated. Not to mention all the technology and the state-of-the-art equipment and what is used to measure performance,
right?
And what's done to optimize that performance. So I think there is a shared, and just as we have with professional athletes, I think there's a shared sense of what we're trying to optimize here. And we're coming at it maybe different contexts or different angles, but it's actually all solving a similar equation.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's why we've been seeing so much success so far with our interactions with top tier athletic teams and with military organizations. I think we've shared this common goal of pushing our what's possible. I think it's a very noble goal. It's challenging. It's hard. There's gonna be setbacks here and there, but I think no one can question, the pure, honest curiosity and drive to better the world in some small way, right? And hopefully we can continue to enable and pursue this mission with collaboration with our listeners, with our customers, with our supporters. Let's continue the conversation and in our unique ways make this mission possible.
Yeah.
Cool. I think this is a good place to wrap it up here. Again, we should have more of these conversations. I appreciate
roll it off to begin with.
Yeah,
right?
this the first 5-6 episodes was the Michael and Jeff show, pontificating around the different philosophical underpinnings of how we started in the world of biohacking. And this I think was one of the more fun off the cuff conversations. So let's definitely get Michael back on and talk about some of these different aspects. I think that's what I think a lot of our listeners appreciate, a little bit of this sneak peek behind what we're doing and what we're thinking about at HVMN. Obviously a lot of things going on all the time here. So if you like this episode, please like it, and of course subscribe on Apple iTunes, Google Play, YouTube, and SoundCloud. If there's any other requests or things that you'd like us to talk about, please send us a line. Myself and Zil, our producer, looks at every single piece of message and feedback we get. Thanks so much.
Thanks. Great to be here.
Bye.